On Sunday afternoon, I'm fixated on the web of scratches covering my parents' kitchen table, my index finger tracing a deep gouge I remember carving with a fork out of sheer boredom when I was 12. The aged wood feels warm and strangely comforting under my touch, polished smooth by decades of family dinners, arguments passed off as homework help, and deeply uncomfortable conversations, exactly like the one brewing now. $30,000, all of it. My mother's voice is a sharp, clean cut through the heavy silence of the room. She's positioned directly across from me, her posture so rigid it looks painful, her gaze locked on my face with a piercing intensity that makes my stomach twist into a knot. My older sister Chloe stands just behind her, a sentinel with her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She's wearing that practiced expression of concerned disappointment, the one I'm sure she rehearses in the mirror, perfected for moments just like this. My father is staring at his own folded hands on the table, his gold wedding band a dull glint in the weak afternoon sun slanting through the window. He refuses to look at me. In fact, he hasn't made eye contact since I walked in 30 minutes ago for what they deceptively labeled a family meeting. My heart begins to hammer a frantic rhythm against my ribs as the chilling truth settles in. This isn't a meeting. It's a meticulously planned ambush. It's a family venture. My mother, Lisa, continues, her voice now saturated with a rehearsed, almost giddy enthusiasm she reserves for sales pitches. A genuine once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that could completely transform things for all of us. Chloe nods, perfectly on cue, like a well-trained actress. We've been putting this together for months, Alara. And we thought, isn't it time we finally included our little sister in something big? Her smile is a bright, predatory flash of two white teeth. You're always complaining that you want to be more involved in the family's decisions. I swallow against a lump forming in my throat, my mind reeling as I try to fully grasp what they're demanding. The money they're so casually referencing took me 5 grueling years of working double shifts, of budgeting every single dollar to accumulate. 5 years of turning down vacations with friends, of wearing clothes until they were threadbare, of even skipping dinner with coworkers to save a few extra bucks. So I provide all the capital, I say, letting the words hang in the air, each one heavy with disbelief. And what do you do? Lisa waves a dismissive hand, as if my question is a minor inconvenience. We have the network, the business acumen. You've always been better with following directions. She lets out a light, airy laugh as if she's just bestowed a great compliment upon me. And I would get a percentage, Chloe interjects smoothly. Obviously, a smaller one than ours since we're handling the real work, but still, a share is a share. The unspoken threat, the one they always hold in reserve, hangs thick and suffocating in the space between us. After everything we've done for you, I feel the immense weight of their collective expectation pressing down on my chest, making each breath a struggle. But deep beneath that familiar pressure, something else is stirring, a new feeling, something that simply wasn't there a month ago. A month ago, before my Aunt Helen's quiet, earth-shattering revelation, I can still see it perfectly. I was standing in my cramped apartment kitchen, my hands submerged in soapy water as I washed dishes, while Aunt Helen carefully dried them beside me. Her voice had dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, even though we were the only 2 people for miles. There's something you deserve to know about why your mother calls you the mistake. The memory of her words is a burning ember in my chest. She told me how my mother had been on the verge of a massive career breakthrough when she discovered she was pregnant with me. How she blamed every subsequent business failure and financial setback on being forced to rush back to work too soon. How I, in her eyes, became the living, breathing symbol of her lifelong resentment. "Your entire life," Aunt Helen had said, her movements slow and deliberate as she polished a plate. "She's been making you pay for a crime you never committed." I'm pulled back to the present moment, suddenly aware that my prolonged silence has injected a fresh, unfamiliar tension into the room. On any other day, I would already be nodding, placating them, promising to transfer the money, to do whatever I could to help. But today, I just sit, neither agreeing nor refusing. "When would you need the funds?" I ask, my voice surprisingly quiet and level. Lisa and Chloe exchange a lightning-quick glance, a flicker of shared victory passing between them. They're certain they've won. They always have before. "In 3 weeks," my mother says, already reaching for her phone with a triumphant air. "I can give you the account details right now." Only my father seems to sense that something fundamental has shifted. He looks up, his eyes briefly meeting mine for the first time since I arrived. I see a flash of something in their depths. Is it sadness? Regret? Maybe even recognition? Whatever it is, it's gone as quickly as it appeared, and he returns to the safety of studying his hands. I nod slowly, buying myself precious seconds. "I'll need to look at my accounts," I say, astonished at how steady my own voice sounds. "Make sure everything is liquid." Chloe's triumphant smile returns, aimed directly at my mother. "See? I told you she'd get it. Family first." "Right, Alara, family first." How many times have they wielded those 2 words like a weapon to drain my savings, to monopolize my weekends, to justify every single sacrifice they've ever demanded of me? But as I sit here at this table, under the crushing weight of their expectations, I realize a tectonic plate has shifted deep inside me. The money they want is so much more than just a number in a bank account. It's my escape. It's my future. It's the life I have been too terrified to even dream of, let alone claim. And for the very first time, I'm not sure I'm willing to hand it over. 2 days later, on a Tuesday, in my tiny apartment, the ghost of my 18th birthday rises up to haunt me as I sit at my own small kitchen table, staring at my checkbook. My phone's screen glows with Lisa's latest text. "Don't forget your contribution this month. Rent is due Friday." On that birthday, instead of a cake, my mother had slid a neatly handwritten invoice across our kitchen table. "Now that you're an adult," she'd said, her lips tightening into something that was supposed to resemble a smile, "it's time you started contributing to household expenses." My dad had become intensely fascinated with the contents of his coffee mug, while Chloe smirked at me from behind a textbook. I'd stared at the figure, $400, which was nearly half of my part-time paycheck from the local bookstore. When I dared to ask if this meant I could skip my weekend shifts helping out at my mother's perennially failing boutique, her eyes had turned to ice. "If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have been in this financial mess in the first place." 11 years later, that contribution has remained a constant, non-negotiable drain, not even counting the endless stream of emergencies that conveniently seem to pop up whenever my bank account starts to show a flicker of life. The keys to my apartment rattle against the cheap laminate of my table. The place is minuscule, a converted garage I share with a medical student I rarely even see. My commute to the office is a soul-crushing hour each way, but the rent is just low enough that I can put a little aside each month, even after my mother's mandatory withdrawal. I open my journal, its pages soft and worn from years of handling. 10 years of entries tell the same bleak, repetitive story. A brief surge of excitement when a paycheck lands, followed by frantic calculations of how much I can possibly hide away, and then The inevitable gut-wrenching call or text from my mother demanding money for some new, unforeseen crisis. March 4th, first raise at the firm, an extra $200 a month. Maybe I can finally start saving for a reliable car. March 7th, Mom called. Chloe needs emergency dental work. There goes the car fund. August 15th, 5 years of saving, 5 years of careful deception, of letting them believe I'm perpetually broke and just barely scraping by. My phone lights up with another text. It's Chloe this time. Mom says you're being difficult about the monthly payment. After everything they've done for you? I set the phone face down, refusing to answer. Chloe learned very early on to align herself with my mother. She was the golden child, named after our grandmother. I, on the other hand, was carelessly named Elara, after a character in some fantasy novel my mother was reading during a business trip where she went into premature labor. We couldn't think of anything else, she'd explained dismissively when I asked as a child. We were too stressed with the medical bills. The unspoken addendum always hung in the air. The medical bills you caused. The phone buzzes again. It's my father. A rare text from him. Your mother is very upset. Can you please just send the money? I squeeze my eyes shut, a montage of memories flashing behind my eyelids. Countless times he stood by, a silent witness to my mother's financial interrogations, never once intervening. His weakness, his passivity, is its own unique and devastating form of cruelty. Elara, you home? My neighbor Leo's voice, muffled by the thin door, is followed by a gentle knock. I quickly tuck the journal out of sight before opening the door. Leo is standing there holding a plate piled high with chocolate chip cookies, steam still rising from them. Made too many, he says with a casual shrug that doesn't quite mask the genuine concern in his eyes. He's noticed the dark circles under my eyes, the extra shifts I've been pulling. Thanks, I say, taking the plate, struck once again by the sheer novelty of kindness offered with no strings attached. Leo's family calls him every Sunday, but only to check in, to share news, not to issue demands. I've overheard snippets of his warm, easy conversations through our shared wall, a world away from the tense, transactional negotiations that pass for my family's communications. You okay? He asks, lingering in the doorway. You look exhausted. Before I can formulate a reply, my phone rings. It's Sarah from the office, the kind older woman who trained me when I started, and now treats me with a gentle maternal concern that still feels alien to me. I should get this, I tell Leo. He nods and heads back to his own apartment with a small wave. Elara? It's Sarah. Her voice is full of its usual warmth. I noticed you've been working through lunch again. I hope everything is all right. You don't seem like yourself. Something catches in my throat. These small, unearned kindnesses, Leo's cookies, Sarah's concern, throw the stark, barren landscape of my family life into painful relief. I think about the $30,000 sitting in my savings account. That money represents more than just a number. It's 5 years of sacrifice, yes, but it's also 5 years of clinging to a desperate hope. Hope for a life beyond this endless, crushing cycle of obligation and guilt. My mother's latest demand for the entire sum isn't just about money. It's about power. It's about keeping me chained to my designated role as the family's scapegoat. My journal lies on the table, its pages filled with the documented history of my slow, steady erosion. But the most recent page is still blank, waiting, holding space for a new chapter. For the first time in my life, I consider writing something entirely different. The next day, Wednesday, I slide my time-off request form across Sarah's desk, my breath caught in my chest. My supervisor glances up, her reading glasses perched on the tip of her nose. A personal day. You haven't taken one in. She taps a few keys on her keyboard, her eyebrows arching in surprise. 2 years? Good heavens, Ilara. I know. I nervously fidget with the sleeve of my cardigan. Is it okay? I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Take 2, Sarah insists, signing the form with a decisive flourish. Doctor's appointment? Something like that, I murmur, unable to quite meet her gaze. Well, whatever it is, I hope it brings you some peace. She hands the approved form back to me, her expression softening with genuine sympathy. You look like you could really use it. Peace. The word sounds like a foreign language. Later that day, I'm hunched over a public library computer 3 towns over, a place I'm certain no one in my family would ever think to look for me. The fluorescent lights above hum a monotonous tune as I systematically research apartments in Denver, a city nearly 2,000 miles and a world away from everything I've ever known. An unfamiliar, thrilling flutter takes flight in my chest as I scroll through listings. It might be hope, or maybe it's just terror masquerading as excitement. I carefully write down the contact information for 3 properties that fall within my modest budget. The dawning realization that I can actually afford my own place, a real one, not a cramped room in a shared, run-down space, still feels like a seismic revelation. 5 years of working double shifts and denying myself every small pleasure has built a nest egg that my family would tear apart and devour in a heartbeat if I let them. Not this time. The following day, Thursday, I slip into a branch of the Rocky Mountain Credit Union, feeling conspicuous in a pair of sunglasses and a baseball cap I borrowed from Leo. Inside, a young banker named Maria helps me open a new account with my ID and a cashier's check for half of my savings. No joint owner, no shared access, no emergency contact from my family, just my name. Your signature looks a little different here than on your ID, Maria comments, sliding the paperwork back toward me for an initial. I'm working on that, I say, and a small, genuine smile touches my lips as I realize I mean it in more ways than one. That weekend, while my mother drags my father and Chloe to our cousin Catherine's baby shower, I use my old emergency key to let myself into my parents' house. I still haven't sent them the monthly rent money. The familiar cloying scent of Lisa's gardenia candles feels like an accusation as I creep upstairs to the attic. My throat constricts when I see it. A faded blue storage bin with the words Ilara's documents written in my father's neat, careful script. Inside is the paper trail of my entire life. Birth certificate, social security card, vaccination records, my high school diploma. I'd asked for these documents dozens of times over the years. They're safer here, my mother would always insist with an air of finality. You'd just lose them. I clutch the manila folder to my chest, shocked by how light it feels. The entire official record of my 29 years on this planet, and it weighs less than a paperback novel. That evening, I sit on a park bench with a new spiral notebook, watching a family of ducks glide across the glassy surface of a pond. The setting sun warms my face as I begin a list under the heading, Things I Have Survived. My pen moves with a newfound steadiness across the page. My mother's coldness, my sister's cruelty, my father's silence, the constant systematic draining of my bank account, the subtle daily reminders that I was never truly wanted, the not-so-subtle reminders that I owed them for the profound inconvenience of my own existence. When I get to the bottom of the page, I stare at the final item I've written, being called a mistake my entire life. I carefully tear the page from the notebook and fold it into a small, tight square, tucking it into my wallet. Whatever comes next, I've already endured the very worst they could ever do to me. The thought settles in my chest like a heavy, solid stone, strangely, deeply comforting. I am not a mistake, I whisper to the ducks. One of them quacks in response, and I find myself smiling, a real, genuine smile, for what feels like the first time in years. Sunday dinner arrives, bringing with it the usual suffocating atmosphere of passive-aggressive remarks and heavily loaded silences. I take my customary seat at the kitchen table, the very same spot where they ambushed me just a week ago. My mother serves her specialty pot roast, a meal reserved for occasions when she desperately wants something. "So," she says, slicing into the meat with surgical precision, "have you reached a decision about our family venture?" I take a small bite of roast, chewing with deliberate slowness. I'm still considering my options. Chloe lets out a derisive snort. "What's there to consider? It's a guaranteed win." "I'd like to see the business plan first," I say, surprising even myself with the steady, calm tone of my voice. The market analysis, projected returns, that sort of thing. My mother's knife clatters against her plate. "We don't need a mountain of paperwork for this, Alara. This is family, not some cold corporate transaction." "Actually," Chloe interjects, leaning forward with a conspiratorial air, "we were thinking we could simplify the whole process. We could just become signatories on your accounts. It would just help us manage everything more efficiently for you." My father clears his throat, a small nervous sound. "Maybe we should give Alara a little more time to think about it." "She's had plenty of time," my mother snaps, her voice sharp as glass. "This opportunity isn't going to wait around forever." I carefully set down my fork. What exactly is this opportunity, specifically? The dead silence that follows is all the confirmation I need. There is no business plan. There is no investment opportunity. There is only another thinly veiled attempt to bleed me dry. "We're still finalizing the details," Chloe finally says, her voice tight with annoyance. I see. I take another bite of food, feeling a new power rising within me. It's not anger, not exactly. It's something much calmer, steadier. It's the profound, unshakable knowledge that in my heart, I am already gone. The very next day, Monday, Sarah calls me into her office. My stomach plummets, a cold dread washing over me as I'm certain someone, somehow, has discovered my plans. "I have some good news," she says instead, sliding a folder across her desk toward me. "That branch transfer you inquired about? Denver has an opening, and it starts next month. I already put in a strong recommendation for you." I just stare at her, completely speechless. "Don't look so shocked," she says, a warm smile spreading across her face. "You're one of our best employees. They would be lucky to have you." "Thank you," I manage to choke out, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say. "Just say you'll send a postcard," she replies, "and that you'll finally stop letting people take advantage of your kind nature." That evening, Leo helps me sort through my few possessions in our shared apartment. "I can drive your stuff up in my truck when you're ready," he offers, folding one of my sweaters with surprising gentleness. "My band has a gig in Portland that weekend anyway. It's not a big deal." "You don't have to do that, I know," he grins. "But that's what friends do. They help each other escape toxic situations." Friends. The word still feels foreign on my tongue, but so welcome. In my bedroom, I carefully select the few mementos I can't bear to leave behind. My grandmother's thimble collection, a watercolor I painted in high school that won an honorable mention at the county fair, and the small snow globe my father brought me from his one and only business trip to Chicago. Everything else, all the accumulated clutter of a life spent trying to make myself smaller, I sort into bags for donation. On my laptop, I electronically sign the lease for a tiny but sun-drenched studio apartment in Denver, effective immediately. The landlord seemed a bit perplexed when I offered to pay 3 months' rent in advance, but I needed the security, the tangible proof that it was mine, waiting for me. That same night, I purchased a one-way plane ticket for the very day of my family's supposed business meeting. As I click the final confirmation button, my Aunt Helen calls. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" she asks, her voice crackling with static and concern. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "I won't tell them where you've gone," she promises. "But they'll figure it out eventually, you know." "By then," I reply, "I'll be strong enough to handle it." I hang up the phone and open my closet, where a small, elegant gift bag sits waiting. Inside is a silk scarf, a deep, rich burgundy, not the navy blue she prefers, that I bought with my very first paycheck, along with a sealed letter explaining everything I've never had the courage to say to her face. Some goodbyes are better left on paper. A week later, on Saturday night, I walk up to my parents' front door with the small gift bag dangling from my fingers. The silk scarf inside cost me 3 days' worth of lunch money years ago, a significant sacrifice at the time, but some statements are worth the price. My heart is a frantic drum against my ribs as I step onto the familiar porch. Behind this door waits the family that forged me, or rather, misshaped me, into the person I have been for 29 years, the person I am about to leave behind forever. Chloe yanks the door open before I even have a chance to knock, her eyes immediately narrowing at the sight of the gift bag. "What's that?" she asks, her body language forming a human barrier in the doorway. "Just a little something," I say, my voice holding a steadiness that feels borrowed. "Can I come in?" She studies me for a long, uncomfortable moment, as if she's trying to decipher a hidden code in my expression. Whatever she sees, or fails to see, must not set off any alarms, because she finally steps aside with a dismissive shrug. "Mom's in one of her moods," she mutters as I pass. In the dining room, my mother is fussing with the tablecloth, while my father silently arranges silverware beside each plate. The sheer crushing normalcy of the scene almost shatters my resolve. Almost. "There she is," my mother says, without looking up from her task. "You're late. Traffic." I lie, even though I've been parked in my car just around the corner for the last 20 minutes, practicing my breathing. Dinner is a slow-motion crawl through painful small talk, a neighbor's hip replacement, the 10-day weather forecast, Chloe's latest promotion at work. I nod and smile in all the right places, a ghost at my own execution, while the gift bag sits faithfully by my chair, waiting for its moment. "Well," my mother says at last, pushing her plate away with an impatient sigh. "Shall we get down to business?" My father begins collecting the dishes with the precise mechanical movements of a man who checked out of this family's emotional life decades ago. Only the slight tremble in his hands betrays any inner turmoil. Lisa produces a folder from beneath her chair and slides several official-looking papers across the table. "We've decided the simplest approach is for you to just sign these," she says, tapping a pen against the documents. "It's a power of attorney. That way, we can handle all the financial details without having to bother you with them." To help our little sister, who was never very good with money, Chloe adds with her practiced saccharine smile, "You've always been better at following instructions than making decisions, anyway." I stare down at the paperwork. My name, Elara Jean Cox, is typed throughout, but every clause, every protection, every benefit is directed toward them. "Family takes care of family," my mother continues, her voice hardening. "After everything we've done for you, everything we sacrificed because of you, this is the absolute least you can do." My father returns from the kitchen, his eyes glued to the floor as he retakes his seat. The silence stretches, thick with unspoken demands and years of resentment. "You're right," I say finally, my voice clear and calm as I reach for the gift bag beside my chair. "I've thought a lot about everything you've said." My mother and Chloe exchange a look of pure, unadulterated triumph. My father's shoulders slump even further. "And I've decided," I continue, placing the bag in the exact center of the table, "to give you something far more valuable than money." My mother blinks, her face a mask of confusion. "What are you talking about?" "Open it," I say softly. With sharp, impatient fingers, my mother pulls out the elegant burgundy scarf, her favorite color, and then the sealed envelope tucked beneath it. Her name is written across the front in my neatest cursive. "What is this?" she demands, but her voice has lost its razor-sharp edge of authority. "My goodbye," I answer simply as I rise from my chair. "I know the truth now, Mom, about why you call me the mistake. About the business deal you missed all those years ago. About everything." Chloe's mouth drops open. "Aunt Helen," she hisses, "that interfering old—" "I forgive you," I continue, the words flowing more easily than I ever imagined they would. "And I'm leaving. Tonight. There's nothing more to discuss." I turn and walk toward the front door, feeling strangely, wonderfully light. Behind me, I hear the sharp, violent sound of tearing paper as my mother rips open the envelope. "You can't just—" Chloe starts to yell. "I already have," I interrupt, not bothering to turn back. "My things are gone. My apartment is empty. My new job starts on Monday." My father's chair scrapes loudly against the floor. When I risk a glance back, his eyes meet mine directly for the first time in what feels like a lifetime. "Be safe," he whispers, the words barely audible. Outside, the cool night air feels clean and new as it fills my lungs. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzes in my pocket. It's my mother. I ignore it. It will ring again, and again, for days, I'm sure. Chloe's accusatory texts will come next. "Mom is having a breakdown. How could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you." I drive away from the only home I have ever known, watching it shrink in my rearview mirror until it is nothing more than a speck, and then it disappears completely. At the airport, I check in for my flight to Denver, and then, with a deep, shuddering breath, I power off my old phone for the very last time. Tomorrow, I'll turn on a new one. Tomorrow, I'll wake up in my own apartment, in a city where no one knows me as anyone's daughter, anyone's sister, or anyone's mistake. Tonight, I board a plane simply as Alara. Just me. 2 days after I vanished, my mother and sister descended upon my old apartment. Lisa pounded on the door, her knuckles turning white with each furious strike. Behind her, Chloe paced the cramped hallway, a phone pressed tightly to her ear. "Ilara Jean Cox, open this door right now!" The landlord, a weary-looking man in his 60s, stood a few feet away, his arms folded across his chest. "Ladies, I already told you. She moved out 3 days ago, paid her final month's rent, and left the keys on the counter." Chloe snapped her phone shut, frustration twisting her features into an ugly mask. Her phone is still going straight to voicemail. "What do you mean? She moved?" Lisa spun around to face the landlord, her voice shrill. "This is her apartment. Where could she possibly go?" He shrugged, unfazed. "Not my business where my tenants go. All I know is she seemed happy. Happier than I'd seen her in the 2 years she lived here." Lisa shoved past him into the now empty apartment. The faded beige walls were marked with pale rectangles where my few pictures had once hung. The closet door stood agape, empty hangers dangling like skeletons. "Her stuff is all gone," Chloe said, stating the obvious as she always did. Lisa stormed into the kitchenette, yanking open drawers one by one. Her bank statements. She always kept them in the kitchen drawer. The landlord cleared his throat pointedly. I need to lock up now. The new tenant is arriving tomorrow. This is a family emergency, Lisa snapped. Your emergency, he corrected, taking out his keys. Not mine. In the parking lot, Chloe frantically tapped at her phone. The bank won't give me any information. They say I'm not authorized on any of her accounts. Lisa's face darkened with a familiar, terrifying anger. But for the first time, I wasn't there to absorb its impact. She couldn't have gotten far, not on her salary. Call her work. Later that evening, Chloe's voice, thin and trembling, came through my mother's speakerphone. She transferred to another branch in Colorado. They wouldn't tell me anything else because I'm not listed as her emergency contact. Colorado? Lisa's voice climbed to a pitch that used to make me flinch. Who does she know in Colorado? No one, my father said quietly from the background. It was the first thing he'd contributed to their frantic, panicked search. That's probably why she chose it. Thousands of miles away, I woke to sunlight streaming through blinds that I chose. My new apartment in Denver is small, a studio with a kitchenette and a bathroom, but every single inch of it belongs to me. I rolled onto my side, watching the dawn paint the distant mountain peaks in shades of pink and orange. This view cost me an extra $80 a month, but every morning it serves as a powerful reminder of why I'm here. I chose this. I chose me. My phone buzzed with a calendar alert. First day. The familiar flutter of anxiety rose in my stomach, but it felt different now, more like anticipation than pure dread. The local branch office looked almost identical to my old one, but as I walked through the glass doors, I held my shoulders back, my steps firm and sure. You must be Alara. A woman with stylish silver-streaked hair extended her hand. Sarah called me about you, said you're one of the best she's ever worked with. Thank you for the opportunity, I replied, my voice steady in a way it never was during those tense family dinners. At lunch, I walked to a coffee shop across the street. The barista smiled and asked if I wanted my usual before realizing I was a new face. I ordered a vanilla latte without the automatic mental calculation of whether I could afford it, without hearing my mother's phantom voice listing all the other things that money could have been spent on for the family. As I took the first sip, the warmth spreading through my chest, I realized this is what freedom tastes like. 3 months passed in a quiet blur of new routines and peaceful evenings that were entirely my own. Then, my new work phone rang with an unfamiliar number, Alara Cox speaking, a beat of tense silence, and then, Alara? It was my mother's voice, thinner and more frayed than I remembered. Thank God. We've been trying to reach you for months. My hand tightened around the receiver. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter. Her tone shifted, filling with the tremulous, manufactured urgency I knew so well. Your father, he's not well. His heart. The doctors are saying he needs surgery and the insurance won't cover all of it. We need you to come home. The old familiar guilt rose like bile in my throat, but something new and stronger rose with it. Clarity. I'm sorry to hear about Dad, I said, and I meant it, but I can't come home. Can't or won't. Her voice hardened instantly. After everything we've done for you, I ended the call, my hand shaking but my resolve firm. That night, an email from Chloe arrived with the subject line, family obligations. It was filled with veiled threats about legal action and filial responsibility laws, all designed to frighten me back into my old role. My phone rang. It was Aunt Helen. They're planning to visit, she said without preamble. Lisa found your address through that friend of yours, Leo. They're talking about driving out next weekend. A cold dread washed over me, but I didn't panic. Instead, I made a list. Wednesday morning found me sitting across from Eleanor Vance, a lawyer with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "They have no legal claim to your money," she confirmed after I recounted my story. "A cease and desist letter should be sufficient, but we can pursue a restraining order if necessary." That afternoon, I met with HR. "I need to document a potential harassment situation," I explained, laying out the facts calmly and without emotion. "My family may attempt to contact me here at work." The HR manager nodded, taking meticulous notes. "We take employee safety very seriously. I'll alert security and have your direct line changed immediately." That evening, I called Aunt Helen. "I love you," I told her, "but I need you to understand something. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm standing my ground. If they come here, they will be met with legal consequences." A long silence stretched between us before she finally said, "You sound different." "I am different," I replied. 2 days later, a thick envelope bearing my mother's handwriting arrived. Inside was a tear-stained letter, a chaotic jumble of accusations and pleas. At the very bottom, in handwriting I barely recognized for its shakiness, she had written, "I don't know who you are anymore." I folded the letter and placed it in a box labeled "Before." Then I opened my window to the crisp mountain air and breathed in, long and deep. She was right. She didn't know who I was anymore. And until now, neither did I. I waked to golden light filtering through curtains I chose myself. The soft cotton sheets, purchased without a second thought, wrap around me like a promise I've finally kept to myself. My apartment isn't large, but every corner reflects a choice I made. The watercolor painting of the Rockies above my reading chair, the collection of succulents thriving on the windowsill, the bookshelf overflowing with volumes of poetry I no longer have to hide. 1 year. The calendar on my wall confirms what my heart already knows. 1 year since I walked away from a life that was killing me and into this one, which finally feels like my own. My phone buzzes with birthday messages, not the obligatory resentful acknowledgments from family, but genuine wishes from people who simply enjoy my company. Sarah from work, Leo, who helped me move, the friends from my pottery class who are taking me to dinner tonight. "Looking forward to celebrating you," texts Isla, my closest friend in this new city. There's no hidden agenda, no subtle dig about what I ought to contribute. Just pure, uncomplicated affection. I shower and dress for work, choosing a burgundy blouse that would have once been deemed too attention-seeking. My reflection shows a woman who stands taller, whose eyes meet her own gaze without flinching. At the office, a small envelope is waiting on my desk. "Congratulations on your promotion," says the card inside, signed by my entire department. "Your attention to detail and quiet initiative have been invaluable." My eyes burn with unexpected tears, not just for the salary increase that will further cement my independence, but for the validation, for being valued for who I am, not for what I can give away. That evening, surrounded by laughing friends at a small Italian restaurant, I blow out the candles on a cake no one expected me to pay for. Later, back in the quiet of my apartment, I open my journal and write, "Today, I turned 30. My savings account just topped $10,000, money that is truly and completely mine. I sleep through the night now. The nightmares about debt and family emergencies have finally started to fade. My therapist, Dr. Andrews, says healing isn't linear, but I can feel the change in my bones. I'm learning that boundaries aren't selfish. They are an act of self-preservation. Every Thursday, I sit across from Dr. Andrews in her calm, sunlit office, patiently untangling the deep, painful knots of my childhood. Sometimes I leave feeling drained. Other times I feel lighter. but I always leave with more clarity. You can acknowledge the hurt without continuing to live inside of it, she told me last week. Your mother may have named you after a passing thought, but you've turned that name into something with roots and strength. On Saturdays, I volunteer at a community garden. Sinking my hands into the cool, dark soil connects me to something living and growing, something larger than myself, like me. Last month, I accepted a dinner invitation from Daniel, an accountant I met at the garden. Our conversation flowed easily, without the familiar, treacherous undercurrents. When he asked about my family, I told him the truth. Not everything, but enough. He didn't flinch. He just listened. The mail still brings sporadic, ghostly reminders of my past. A Christmas card from my mother arrived without a note, just her name signed with a dramatic flourish. Chloe sends occasional texts about family dramas, casting lines into the water, fishing for a response I no longer feel compelled to give. My father's letters come once a month, tentative bridges that I cross with careful, measured steps. I answer with brief, kind notes that maintain my distance without resorting to cruelty. Yesterday brought something entirely unexpected. A letter from my 19-year-old cousin Maya. Aunt Lisa says you abandoned the family, she wrote. But something about the way they talk about you just doesn't sound right. I'm working 2 jobs while going to college, and my mom keeps saying I owe her for raising me. I don't know what to do. My hands trembled as I dialed her number. For an hour, I just listened as she told me a story so painfully familiar, it could have been my own. You are not crazy, I told her, my voice full of a conviction I didn't have a year ago. And you are not alone. Later, looking at the framed quote on my wall, some call it a mistake. I call it my beginning. I realized something profound. The mistake of my existence had just become someone else's lifeline. This morning, on my birthday, I stood at my window watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of impossible promise. 2 years ago, I couldn't have imagined this life. Now, I can't imagine ever going back to that one. I touch the cool glass of the frame and speak the truth I have finally, fully embraced. The family you're born into may write your first chapter, but the family you choose gets to decide how the story ends.